strategy is education through the magistrate. They focus mainly on educating people, making people understand Islam. And interestingly enough, they dwell a lot on teaching people Al-Quran al-Kareem, which is the foundation of Islam as a religion, as a civilization, as a way of life. Also, they focus mainly on teaching people al-fiqh, the Islamic law, the moral sciences, you understand. And also, there's another methodology is they focus on training people, not only you know, intellectually, but physically, morally and spiritually. What you may call ta'deeb. So people were trained morally, spiritually, and people were made to understand and believe and accept Islam in the most peaceful manner. So from the very moment that, like I explained, Islam came to West Africa, the Sufi people have been in the driving seat, with the Tariq al-Qadri, of course, being the oldest. You have the Tariq al-Tijani, you have the Tariq al-Muridiyya, which is very close to Qadriyya. And to a very large extent, they never use force. There are a few instances where some of the Tijani, particularly Sheikh Omar al-Fouti, had to resort to using jihad, and also the founder of the Muridi Tariqa, Ahmad Bamba, personally, you know, confronted the colonial masters, the French colonial masters. But these are
moving towards Usman Dan Fodio,
exactly, Usman Dan Fodio, even Fode Kaba and others. But to a very large extent, they were very peaceful in the methodology they apply. They were very peaceful in the way they relate to each other. They were very peaceful. And interestingly enough, these people, when they, unlike what we see today in the modern time, when you see Muslims residing in the Arabian Peninsula, enjoying the luxury of life, they are sending millions of dollars to Muslims, but they never set foot in West Africa. But the Sufi in our sub-region, they went to the people, live with them, they relate with them, they mingle with them, they brought themselves down to the level of the people, intermarried with them, and they were therefore able to spread Islam among all the ethnic groups. There is no ethnic group in West Africa where you don't find Muslims. All the ethnic groups, they have Muslims. In fact, most of them, you find that the Muslims are in majority. So, in other words, this Sufi movement, which has three dimensions: political dimension, religious dimension first, political dimension, and social dimension. It became very powerful force because of these three dimensions. This was the movement that was the driving force behind the success of Islam in our sub-region.
In a sense, the Sufi movement led to the formation of the Muslim state, in Muslim Ummah
in West Africa. Exactly, yes. And the protection of Islam up to today.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you, Doctor. Now we move to the eminent scholar, Dr. Farouk. I would like you to tell us, what do you think was the glue that kept Muslims together from the time of the Prophet Muhammad to this day, you know, without being fragmented, you know, spreading apart?
What was the glue that kept the Muslims together, you know, from the days of the Prophet ﷺ to this time? Islam is a very amazing religion. Allah says in the Quran 3 times, هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره الكافرون أو المشركون في آية. So Allah says in the Quran that He, God alone, is the one who sent His messenger with the religion, with guidance and the religion of truth, in order to render it uppermost over all other religion. And this is not just a revelation and a promise that God makes, but this is actually a historical fact, that amazingly in the history of religions, Islam is that religion that wherever it goes, whatever other religion it encounters, whether it is Christianity, Judaism, Magianism, Buddhism, Hinduism,
atheism,
idolatry, atheism, communism, Islam, once it puts its roots down, will always be able to convince all the others to come into it. No other religion has this success in history. And in Islam we have the prophetic law, the Sharia, and we have this pure belief of Tawheed. And then we have the ihsan, which is to worship God in the best possible way as if we could see him. The science of that is Sufism. And one of the things that's amazing about Islam is that it is highly decentralized. So that prophetic law that it has, that it instills into its believers and its communities, it has this natural force to bring them together. And if we look at the history of West Africa, for example, we love all of the tribes of West Africa. All of them are great tribes, but we can identify certain people, such as the Mandinka, for example, that they are among the first people that take this message and they begin to bring it into West Africa. And the Mandinkas create what we can call a trading village. These are trading villages that enable them to, over hundreds of years, bring West Africa together into a single economic unit. And this creates also social and political power, out of which ultimately will come the Empire of Mali. At the same time, you have another great people, the Fulanis. And the Fulanis have a tradition which is one of knowledge and education and also of jihad. And their jihad was connected to the opposition to the slave trade, for example, which comes into West Africa in the 15th centuries. So these people and their allies in West Africa are able to put together a social coherence that is really amazing. And this has a lot to do with the law, and it has a lot to do with the way that Islamic law, which is an essentially decentralized law, can bring chaos, can bring a harmony out of chaos.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's very understood. Now we move back to Doctor. We've also realized there's a version I read from somewhere that the emergence of dominions in Islam seemingly or ostensibly created a little gap, a drift between people in the religion. Is that something that
you mean the nation states?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Islamic nation state.
Well, the nation states were not the making of Islam. The nation state was strategically planned by the colonial people, particularly after the Berlin Conference of 1884, 1885. In fact, the basic objective was to partition Africa. And then even though Germany was defeated, but to partition Africa and make sure that every part of Africa is subject to a particular colonial authority. If you look at the history of the Islamic State, there's no room for nationhood in Islam. The Islamic political system is based on the concept of ummah. Bringing all Muslims together under one authority, that's the Islamic authority. In fact, that is why Islamic rule is usually characterized by what you may call administrative centralism. That traditionally, in a political tradition of Islam, the whole of the Islamic world used to be governed under one central administration, whether the time that the Khilafah was in Medina, or the time that the Khilafah was in Sham, or the time that the Khilafah was in Istanbul. So there was no room for nationhood, nation state in Islam, because Islam called for unity. And you know that this is a religion of peace. Once you believe in it, you submit yourself to Islam truly and honestly, you become a peaceful person. And because of the fact that the tradition is that Muslims are, brought together under the banner of Tawheed, under the one umbrella of the legal umbrella of Sharia, the emphasis is not nation state, but the emphasis is for Muslims to come together under one Islamic state.
Yeah, if you...
One thing, though, to add to this, it's very important to point out is that when we use this word nation state, we're talking about a modern phenomenon.
Yes.
The nation state is a state that has the power to control everything in society. And it has its secret police, it has its modern technology. As Dr. Senghor says, this nation state is something that comes in the wake of colonialism. It has been very harmful to Islamic civilization. In traditional Islamic societies, the state was there. And in the early period, we have a relatively unified state under the Umayyads, for example. After that, you have the Andalusians break off and others. And then after centuries, you have many principalities and different kingdoms in Islam, but